Welcome back, guys. Sweet Chris here. In this review video, I'm going to be taking a look at a third-party approval workflows app, and that app is called ApprovalMax. Now, the benefit of using an app like this, and there are many other options, is the fact that you can use, basically without having additional NetSuite licenses, you are able to have managers, supervisors, accountants, and whatnot do approvals for things like expenses, bills, purchase orders, without having to have them actually operate within NetSuite. These apps also tend to have the added benefit of a clean and user-friendly user interface as opposed to NetSuite, which can have a bit of a learning curve for new users and just tends to be a bit more rigid in its functionality. So they generally bring additional functionality to the table, allow a cleaner UI, and do not require you to actually have additional NetSuite user licenses. Now, I should say this video is not sponsored by ApprovalMax. They were kind enough to give me a demo account, but in no way are they actually paying for this video to be made. The concept is that I am providing an independent and an unbiased review of this product, and as well as some of its limitations and its competitors. Now, before I actually dive into the software itself, I'd like to say if you're finding this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to see more review videos like this, and let me know down in the comments what product you'd like me to take a look at. I know there can be a lack sometimes of information on the difference between certain third-party applications, especially ones that do the same thing, which ones are better or in certain circumstances. So if you have a need for that and there's something you'd want me to take a look at, just let me know down in the comments, and at some point I'll be able to make a video on that. So without further ado, let's take a look at ApprovalMax. So I'm here in ApprovalMax, and basically what we're looking at is we've got kind of our sidebar over here that gives us a lot of features and tools. And then we've got our main field in the middle here, which currently there's nothing to look at, but we'll get into that in a second. And I'm currently, you can see I'm in the subsidiary for the dev subsidiary here. I could click on this and select a different subsidiary if I had multiple options. And I'm currently in the administrator role. So if I come down to workflows and settings, I can always select users and switch between roles if I have them. But let's take a look at approval workflows, because that's really where this all starts, that these workflows will be set up in the beginning and everything basically trickles down from there. So in this current system for this dev subsidiary, we have a few workflows that are currently set up. So let's take a look at one of these and see what we're dealing with. So you can see that the way this works is it basically flows from left to right. So on the left-hand side, an expense report is created in ApprovalMax. It then goes over to this approval step, and once things are fully approved, it moves on to update that record or create that record in NetSuite itself. So you can see within each of these steps, there's a certain parameters and features that you can set. So you can set who is actually going to see this thing, what approval individuals are required. For example, in this particular middle step, we have that Alex Kesselman should approve every one of these expense reports. What if we wanted to add someone? We can go over here and we click add an approval. And let's say we wanted to add Chris at Gmail. So again, now it's saying, you can see the approval condition is all. So both of these people have to approve every single one of these expense reports. But maybe we want to change that from all to any of. That means that either one of these people could approve it, and if any one of them approved it, it would then move on to a full approval and it would go back to NetSuite. So you've got a few different options here. You can also easily click and remove people. You can add additional approval steps. Let's say there's one stage of approvals and then a different stage based on the first stage approving things. You can simply add as many as you want. You can also drag and move them around, so it's pretty flexible. And if you want to get very complex with your approval settings, you can always go over here and click this matrix feature, which will basically, and you can add additional people here, it allows you to set whatever requirements you have. So everything from amounts, maybe limits that certain people can approve, certain categories, accounts that they're able to interact with, all of these different things. And you can see I can pan over here, you've got all of these different segments and features that you can limit the approval status for. So we've got that on the matrix, and this is the basic concept of the workflow. So now that we see how these workflows are in ApprovalMax, let's take a look at making a new transaction in ApprovalMax and how that influences the workflow. So we're going to come up here to new request, And let's say we want to make a purchase order. So I click on that and I hit create request. I'm not going to save any changes to this, so I'll say discard. So it brings me to this PO details, and very similar to NetSuite, but again, the UI is a little cleaner. You have the ability to select your vendor. So let's pick the Minister of Finance in this case. It is taking this information from NetSuite. So it's going to auto-populate things like the currency, the location, subsidiary, etc. So if we scroll down here, we can add a memo field. So let's say purchase item. And if we come down here, we can come to the item selection and we can pick whatever item we have available. So for this particular vendor, let's say we're going to pick the women's tunic, and we can tell some basic information about that. We can put in a quantity. Let's say we just want one, and it has the quantity or the price for that. Obviously, this is a very expensive tunic. This is just an example. Obviously, we could add however many items we wanted. We can add additional expenses as needed. And once we're done with everything, we come up here to submit for approval. All right, so we can now see that the request was in fact submitted, and it brings us to this page here, which we are seeing it on the left here, all requests. So you have on your sidebar the location where you can basically queue up all requests that relate to you. So again, I'm in the administrator role, so I see not only requests that need to be approved by me, but also just any request that is visible by me, which in this case is everything. I can see all these purchase orders, I can see these bills, etc., all lined up here, as well as the one that I just made. So this one at the top is this purchase order from the Minister of Finance for this tunic for about $1,500 in Canadian. So I have this here, and if I scroll down, I can actually see what the approval status is. So this first approval step needs to be done by Alex Kesselman. And once he's approved it, it goes on to the next approval step. Now I can actually come over here and change the approval status to either remove Alex. I can come over and add additional approvers just for this particular transaction. It's not going to affect the workflow overall, but just this particular one. If there was some reason, let's say someone was out sick and I wanted to take them off this and add someone else in, I could do it however I wanted to as the administrator. Once this is done, it would go on here for the next level of approvals. But let's say for the sake of this example that I just want to approve it and move it on. I can come up here to force the decision. If I click on that, I can either force approve or force reject. So let's say I want to force approve. I would say why, and I click force the approval. So you can see this is now an approved purchase order, and it's locked off these approval steps. Despite the fact that Alex did not approve it, I forced it through and it is now a fully approved transaction. And the same applies for anything you're dealing with. Again, we have purchase orders, bills, sales orders, vendor returns, expense reports, all of these different features here. You can have them expand out, expand in. You can add additional ones as needed. The workflows themselves are very flexible. So quite a bit of functionality there. And keep in mind that ApprovalMax can integrate with email, mobile app, and Slack. So if you want to have approvals go to you, let's say on Slack or to your phone, you can actually set that up so that you're able to pull out your phone, hit approval on an expense report that comes your way, and it would still keep moving along that workflow. So that's how ApprovalMax works. Now I'd like to take a look at some of the limitations as well as some of the competitors that this product has, which, as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of different options. And you really need to think with the fact that there's a whole range of products, everything from ApprovalMax, which is more limited to just approval workflows, going all the way up to full AP automation. So you can get other products that are more a whole all-in-one package, things like Airbase and Tapalti. And if that's your requirement and you have a need for that at a greater expense, then certainly you should go with something like that. If you really are just trying to get something that's more to fit an exact function, which in this case would be approval workflows, then something like ApprovalMax could be a great option for you. One of the biggest limitations of a product like this is the fact that because it's an integration bolted onto NetSuite, so it's requiring data from NetSuite, it's processing that and then sending the data back to NetSuite. It is generally, I found it to be slow in certain instances. If you're pulling up new records, you're trying to process certain things, sometimes the wait time can be quite a long time. And that's generally a complaint you hear with NetSuite itself. So it's no surprise really that if NetSuite itself can be very slow when doing some of these things, then when you're having to do that action, then pull it out of NetSuite and do additional processing on this side, it has that additional lag time. And while I have heard from the ApprovalMax team that they're trying to add a cache feature to make the system go faster, I don't expect that they'll ever get to a point where it is incredibly fast. You're always going to be kind of dealing with that issue of the latent speed of NetSuite itself, and then whatever speed that ApprovalMax has on top of that. Another limitation to think with is how you want to pay for this type of software. If you simply want to have a once a year payment that you never have to think about again, then you might want to go with a different option. The way that ApprovalMax sets up the charge base for this type of software is based on the number of transactions. So if you have 100 transactions that are going to go through this system, they're going to charge you $2,500 a year. And then as the number increases, it will scale up. They do give a discount as it scales up, but it can still get very large if you're dealing with a huge amount of transactions. So if you know you're going to have thousands and thousands of transactions, or you simply don't want the headache, you want to just know what the price is with no further alterations, you might want to look at a different option that prices things differently. And that's it for my review of the third-party ApprovalMax software. If you've particularly used ApprovalMax, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of it. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.